for tomorrow, YouTube at Nationwide 90 FM. You can also text us on WhatsApp at 876-307-7475. And you can download the Nationwide app from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store so you can listen to History for Tomorrow on the go.
Yes, as usual, we'll begin our show with the headlines and our hot pick of the week. And after that, we'll be talking to Colleen Douglas on women in music, music and women, and especially Jamaican music and Jamaican women.
Yeah, and we'll continue at 10 with In the Classroom. This week, we have some students from Calabar.
All right. After that, we'll take a look at This Week in History.
We'll then continue with What's Popping.
And as always, we'll end the show with the historical birthday of the week. So coming up after a quick break, the headlines.
You can have it all. Company events, birthday parties, or the wedding of your dreams. It's all possible at Grand Palladium Hotels and Resorts. We have magnificent event rooms and a dedicated team that will make your event the best experience that only Grand Palladium Hotels and Resorts can offer. Contact us at 876-619-0000 or call your favorite travel agency and ask about our promotion designed especially for you.
Listen to Nationwide 90 FM on 90.1,
90.3,
90.7,
90.9.
or visit our Flow channel on a 916. To our valued listeners, for questions, comments, or concerns about our programs, email us at programs@nationwidenewsnetwork.com.
Everybody's talking about headlines. Tell me, have you heard it? Headlines. A front page story. Headlines. Headlines.
Welcome back. You're listening to History for Tomorrow, and here are the headlines. Boom in mining for renewable energy minerals threatens Africa's great apes. So, I think we have heard throughout the years that Africa really has a wealth of minerals and these things, and there's been a lot of discussion around what's happening in Sudan and Congo, especially with like cobalt mining. But another aspect of this is that the mining, which has just really taken an uptick in copper, lithium, nickel, and as I said, cobalt, has been seen in a recent study to be very dangerous for the apes, the gorillas, the bonobos, the chimpanzee, to their livelihood. There is a real possibility of extinction. And for those of us who might not understand, these minerals are really important to the development and maintenance of clean energy. So that's a technology that makes wind turbines and electric cars. And for more specifics, Africa is home to an estimated 30% of these resources. So there's no chance that this is going to stop anytime soon. But what this mining has done is it's damaging habitats, it's polluting environments, and it's causing deadly diseases to these animals. So now we're looking at the possibility of 2/3 of these primate species being close to extinction. The researchers said more could be done to mitigate mining's effects on endangered species, but mining companies are not required to make biodiversity data publicly available.
Yeah, this is a real dilemma. Next on our headlines, Brazil's indigenous group gets literary steam and an apology for dictatorship-era crimes. Yes, indeed, this was a historic week for Brazil's Krenak people, is the name of the indigenous people in Brazil, of one of the indigenous people, of course, getting both literary steam by one who was received by one of its members, and also an apology for dictatorship-era crimes, both for the indigenous people of the country. So on Tuesday, the indigenous group received a formal apology for human rights abuses they suffered during the military dictatorship that lasted in Brazil from 1964 to 1985. And this was the first time an apology like this was issued in Brazil. Then on Friday, one of the leaders of this community who is a renowned writer and environmentalist, his name is Ailton Krenak, earned a seat at the Brazilian Academy of Letters, which is like a very reputable institution in Brazil, the country's most exclusive literary body. During the ceremony when Krenak was awarded or was inducted into the academy, he was wearing a traditional necklace and received a diploma from his peers, wearing an indigenous headband and the academy's traditional green vest. And his objective or his purpose as a member of the academy is to bring more languages to the room, not just Brazilian Portuguese. And indeed, what he does want is to create a platform so it will make the institution's documents and books available in the multiple indigenous languages that exist in Brazil. He claimed, or he added, that the idea is to prioritize spoken language and not text, because what threatens this indigenous language is the lack of speakers. The more Portuguese is being spoken, the less the indigenous language are being, and many are on the verge of disappearing. And regarding the apology, this apology was issued in the name of the Brazilian state, and it was said that they asked for forgiveness for all the suffering the Krenak people suffer through the years, during the years of the dictatorship, the military dictatorship. Those crimes including forcing the Krenak people off their land in southern Minas Gerais, where a so-called reformatory site was built. In that place, indigenous peoples were tortured, beaten, and forbidden to speak their languages. In addition, the commission also extended an apology to all the Guarani Kiowa indigenous people who were also chased off their land in Mato Grosso do Sul state to make way for farms run, of course, by non-indigenous Brazilians.
Next in the headlines, a fierce earthquake rattles Taiwan, killing 9 and injuring more than 1,000. And I mean, just yesterday there was an earthquake in New York. But let's stay where I am. Yeah. So the strongest earthquake in a quarter century rocked Taiwan on Wednesday morning, killing 9 people, stranding dozens at quarries and the national park, and sending some residents scrambling out of the windows of damaged buildings. I don't know if anyone has seen the photos, but some buildings are almost turned on their sides. The quake, which is estimated to have injured more than 1,000 persons, struck at 8 a.m. and was centered off the coast of the rural mountainous county Hualien. Rescuers fanned out in Hualien looking for people who may be trapped and using excavators to stabilize damaged buildings. The number of people missing, trapped, or stranded fluctuated as authorities learned of more in trouble and worked to locate or free them. TVs showed neighbors and rescue workers lifting residents, including a toddler, through windows and onto the street. But the authorities, so even though there was a kind of there had some initial idea that an earthquake was coming, they didn't think it was going to be too severe, because this region is used to having quakes fairly regularly. When the eventual quake came, it was strong enough to scare people, and it was about 7.2, I believe. 7.2, I think. Richter.
I think it was about 7.2 years.
Yeah, and so the authorities they had this expectation, and furthermore, it caused a tsunami, not a big one, on the southern Japanese islands. It's reported that at least 1,011 persons have been reported injured, and 24 tourists were also stranded in the park, in one of the national parks.
Oh, all right. So finally, on our headlines, rights advocates demand end to Haiti deportations as unrest continues in the country. Rights advocates are calling on countries across the Americas, including the Caribbean, notably the United States, but especially also the Dominican Republic, to stop deporting migrants and asylum seekers to Haiti amid a surge in gang violence and political instability. Gerlin Joseph, one human rights advocate based in the U.S., explained that there's no safe space for displaced Haitians. And he added, "We are pushing for a complete stop of deportations to Haiti by land, by sea, or by air, stressing that Haitians and other asylum seekers should have access to pathways for protection." Haiti, as we know, has faced more for months widespread violence, especially with the upsurge of gang groups in the country, especially following the assassination of the former prime minister. The violence has effectively paralyzed the city of Port-au-Prince, and more than 360,000 Haitians had been forcibly displaced from their homes across the country, according to the International Organization for Migration, which is a United Nations agency. Despite the continuing unrest, the UN agency reported on Thursday that the neighboring countries have forcibly sent 30,000 migrants back to Haiti in March alone, which is a 46% increase compared with the previous month. And it was also added that for most Haitians, the prospect of regular migration, that is like documented migration, it remains an insurmountable hurdle, leaving irregular migration as the only semblance of hope. The Amnesty International made a special appeal to the Dominican Republic government to end the use of de facto racist migration policies that targeted Haitians, Dominicans of Haitian descent, and black people in the country. And we know that the Dominican government itself has informed of the deportation of more than 250,000 Haitians in 2023, if you can believe it. All right, so those are headlines. And
yeah, and I think it's your hot pick. You are gone for so long that we need to
I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start. I mean, let me tell you something. I'm just going to. We have spoken about the Haiti situation, and especially, I guess, the hypocrisy of nations, especially the neighboring nations, and I'm talking about the Western Hemisphere, not just in the Caribbean, in terms of like expressing concern with the situation in Haiti, but at the same time not providing the kind of humanitarian assistance that Haitian needs, especially in the context of the fact that, you know, due process is not followed in most cases, and they are deported without given the chance to apply for asylum. But today I want to focus on something a little bit more positive, and it's that apology issued by the Brazilian government to the indigenous people. The current government of Brazil, headed by Lula da Silva, has nothing to do with the military dictatorship of the 1960s to 1980s. However, he knows that he is the maximum representative of the Brazilian state. And the crimes that were committed against people during the dictatorship were committed in the name of the Brazilian state. And for that reason, the government has taken responsibility for them and has issued that apology. Of course, an apology is not enough, but it's a very good start in terms of claiming that sort of responsibility and maybe addressing some of those issues created. And of course, we will hope to see that there is more to come in terms of like addressing the needs of indigenous peoples in Brazil that continue to be marginalized. Because oftentimes we think about the marginalization of indigenous peoples in the Americas going back to the colonial days, but they continue after independence to this day, right? So I think that's an important notice. And I think I've noticed in the past 2 decades that indigenous groups in the Americas have grown increasingly stronger in terms of advocating for their rights. And we have seen how Latin American but also North American states are kind of like responding to the pressure and the push from these indigenous group advocacy groups, which is a very positive note, and I hope that more will come from this. So that is my whole pick.
Yeah, I mean, I was also really interested in the topic. We've done quite a bit of work now on the indigenous peoples of South America, and it's always great to have one win in a week full of chaos.
Yes, I know it has been a rough week, and I can almost guarantee that it will continue being a rough week in the weeks to come.
Yes.
All right. So those are our headlines and hot pick. We're gonna take a quick break now, and we'll be back shortly with this week's interview. Please stay tuned.
Everybody's talking about headlines. Tell me, have you heard it? Headlines. A front page story. Headlines. Headlines. Headlines.
Come into the parlor, there's a welcome there for you.
Welcome to the Mayor's Parlor with Desmond McKenzie.
From 1 to 6 p.m. every Sunday, you'll now get more of your favorite vintage music.
Put your head on my shoulder.
Nationwide 90 FM will transform your Sunday into a musical time machine that will take you way back.
Come with me. Let's go back in time.
This magic moment.
Journey into yesteryear with Desmond McKenzie in the Mayor's Parlor.
I've got the music to jog your memory and make you smile.
Put your sweet lips a little closer to the phone.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the best in vintage music.
Come into the Mayor's Parlor every Sunday between 1 and 6 p.m. here on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media.
Those oldies but goodies reminds me of you. Yes, it's so nice to shop Fontana style. Fontana style. Our service is top Fontana style. Fontana style. Easy parking, friendly smiles.
And we go that extra mile.
Come, enjoy it all. Variety galore, Fontana style. Fontana style.
Low prices and much more Fontana style.
Fontana style. This pharmacy's unique. We have everything you seek. Alright. Come, we've got it all, Fontana style. Yeah.
Come into the parlor, there's a welcome there for you.
Welcome to the Mayor's Parlor with Desmond McKenzie.
From 1 to 6 p.m. every Sunday, you'll now get more of your favorite vintage music.
Put your head on my shoulder.
Nationwide 90 FM will transform your Sunday into a musical time machine that will take you way back.
Come with me. Let's go back in time.
This magic moment.
Journey into yesteryear with Desmond McKenzie in the Mayor's Parlor.
I've got the music to jog your memory and make you smile.
Put your sweet lips a little closer to the phone.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the best in vintage music.
Come into the Mayor's Parlor every Sunday between 1 and 6 p.m. here on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media.
Those oldies but goodies reminds me of you.
I am black and I'm strong in every way. Trotting to the top of the mountain. Jaja in control and life of mistake.
Welcome back. You're listening to History for Tomorrow on Nationwide 90 FM. And before we get into the interview, Enrique, I just can't wait to hear about your trip. Where did you go?
I went to two cities.
Yeah.
One is Santo Domingo, capital of Dominican Republic, and the other one is Panama City, of course, capital of Panama.
Yeah.
And they're all obviously very important historically speaking.
Right.
Santo Domingo, like in terms of like one of the first, if not the first, like proper city that was kind
Right,
of founded by the European colonizers in the not just in the Caribbean but in the Americas. And Panama obviously is very important because of the construction of the canal, because of the implications for world trade, but also the implications for Jamaican migration in the late 19th and early 20th century. So yeah, very interesting historical sites.
I mean, like, I just think about, like, I have family in Panama, so, like, I've heard a lot about Panama, but, like, I've noticed more and more people are going to Dom Rep, and they talk about how fabulous it is, and their historical district. Can you, like, what was that like?
Okay, fabulous. I can only talk about, and this is a shame, because I can only speak for Santo Domingo.
Right.
I did not have a chance, but obviously I want to go back to the country in a different setting so I can go about my business. And,
Yes.
and
Oh, right, because you were there with your daughter for a class trip.
Yeah, it was a class
Okay,
trip, so
okay.
of course, like, I have to follow everybody's footsteps, and which is not like me, but anyway, yeah, I play. You know, I was a team player,
Yeah.
but still, it was good. It was good. I have to say, by the way, for those Jamaicans who sometimes concerned about the future, like the kids were so well behaved.
Oh,
right.
that's
Yeah,
good.
that it was very impressive. I had a good trip in that sense. Also, that saying that these young kids are young, relatively young, behave so well. But yeah. It's interesting because historically, like the city of Santo Domingo has a relatively well developed city center, colonial, the old colonial town,
Right.
which is it's undergoing renovation, right? But what I found very interesting is that, first of all, and I think that it speaks to why so many people are going there. The economy has been growing very fast for the
Right.
past few years. It slowed down a little bit with COVID, but still is growing at above 5%
Wow.
per year, which means that it's still growing very, very fast compared to other countries in the region. So I suspect that is one of the reasons in terms of the business opportunities that are presented there.
Of
Like
course.
Dominican Republic, I think the population, what they said, it was about 11 million or something like that. So it's a big population too, which is a big market in
Yeah.
terms of the economy
Right.
and business opportunities. But what I like about it is that how they are renovating their old colonial town. And what I like about it is that how they are trying to stick to the kind of like heritage of the area. So, for example, many of the buildings are being renovated. They have to have a proper license. They have to have like a report by an architect, which is an expert on the
Right.
colonial architecture of
Yeah.
the area. And you saw some signs of like renovation. Construction that had been halted, basically had been stopped
Wow.
for lacking the license.
Wow.
So every time that they realize that something's going on and it doesn't meet the criteria that are like they stop they stop the renovation. So that is an interesting thing. The second interesting thing about it is that even though the renovation is taking place in that city center, the city center or that colonial area it still is very much livable. Like what you
Yeah.
see is local people living there. In a sense, there's some signs of gentrification, but they are limited because what you see for the most part, I guess because most tourists don't really go to Santo Domingo, they go more to the beach areas and stuff like that, like Punta Cana. It's still what you have is most of the people that you see in that colonial area of the city, it's local people
Right.
living, working, socializing, and so on. And that was to me a very good sign.
Yeah, I mean it's really it's on my list. It's on my list, and I think my hesitation has always been like I have very limited Spanish
Yeah.
knowledge, but
I mean, unfortunately, I will say that unfortunately you can get by with English. And I say unfortunately because perhaps that is one of the impediments for many English speakers to learn a second or even a third language. The fact that you can get by
Right.
with your language wherever you go doesn't give you the I
Right.
guess the encouragement that you need to force
That's
yourself
true.
to learn the
That
language.
is true.
So of course there are many people in the Dominican Republic. Many people. There are people who can speak English and can communicate with you,
Right.
especially in this area that are more familiar with tourism and so on. So that is one of the interesting things. And also as a contrast, and I had seen this in other former Spanish colonies, those kind of city center areas are way more developed than the English-speaking
Yes.
city
Yes.
centers or downtowns. Like,
Yeah.
there's way more construction. There's
Yeah.
more urban development.
makes sense.
You could see that in Dominican Republic, in Santo Domingo. I saw that in Havana, the old Havana. I remember also in Guatemala, I saw that as well. And in Panama, even Panama City, the colonial
Right.
section of the town is also like a properly developing. It's like a proper urban space.
Right.
And I guess some of it has to do with the fact that many more people from the Iberian Peninsula, from Spain, settle in those places and to live,
Right.
as opposed to perhaps the Jamaican experience, where many of the English plantation owners they were absentees, right?
Right.
And this was just a place purely of extraction and not really so much of development. So that is one of the things.
So, I mean, the Dominican Republic was one of the earliest places where the Spanish arrived in the Caribbean. How do they? I mean, what you told me about a little bit before we started the show was the architecture in this historic district, and we've been talking a little bit about how they maintain that. But what's the history like? How do people seem to relate to this kind of Spanish heritage?
Yeah, that was also very interesting, especially coming from Jamaica, because it's a very different take at history from what you might find in the English-speaking Caribbean. There is considerably more of a celebration of that kind of colonial Spanish heritage that you may find in the English-speaking Caribbean. In fact, for example, when I was talking to the tour guide, a Dominican, we had a conversation, and when he was asking, I was telling him how my family originally, it's from Equatorial Guinea and in Africa, and I said, and this is the only Spanish-speaking, basically was the only Spanish colony in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa.
Right.
He asked me, but was it really a colony? At first, I didn't understand what it meant. I said, oh no, you know what? He asked me to find out if it was really a colony. Did they leave a university? So he told me that because he said, because here in the Dominican Republic, in the 16th century, the Spanish built the first university in the Western Hemisphere.
Wow.
And because of that, basically, this was never, Dominican Republic, he said, was never a colony, was an extension of Spain, which is highly, highly problematic. But the interesting thing is that that's how, I guess, they've been taught to think about that sort of colonial legacy. When I told him, no, there was no university, and they said, yes, in that case, that was a colony. I said, no, there was no university. They didn't leave anything in Equatorial Guinea for the most part. It's nothing. And it's just that was definitely a colony, unlike us. That was interesting. They have this monument to celebrate Columbus and stuff like that as well.
I've heard, I noticed this especially when I was living in Boston. There's a very big and vibrant Dominican Republic diaspora.
Yeah.
Actually, a very large Latinx Caribbean community, and I lived in a very Caribbean community for a while. There is this real divorce from slavery, chattel enslavement, blackness. It's kind of there's just a real step back from anything that could be negatively connected to the colonial period. And when I hear about that, I'm kind of they really worked hard to create a thought process here. And when you think about kind of the Haitian society, the petit bourgeois, and all of that kind of separation of communities, so it's I'm not a black
of African descent.
Yeah. No. I'm just what's the word that they use? Oh gosh.
Was that Creole or what?
No, it's they're saying I'm mestizo. Where they use something else to distinguish themselves.
Yeah.
And I just think that is
actually have something to say about that, because I kind of initially I thought like you, but then I had second thoughts about it.
Okay.
But let's take a break. Let's take a quick break now, and when we come back, we can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Outperform, outlast. We top performance. Guilty. Jackama. Reliable, full stop, not comma. We have the expertise for drilling and demolition. We have the power tools for plumbers and electrician. Fancy select tools, 3 parts and 3 repairs. 3 parts, 3 repairs. The 2 to 3 years. Hilton, available at Delta Supply, 106 Hagley Park Road. Call us at 876-302-6111-4. Delta Supply, we service what we sell.
Welcome back. You're still listening to History for Tomorrow, and we are talking about Enrique's recent trip to some of the Spanish Caribbean places in the region. So we last in a few minutes ago we were talking about oh my gosh,
racial
kind
of lack of affiliation with their African ancestry, right? That is something that I had always heard about people from the Dominican Republic, because of course there's also a large Dominican Republic community in Spain, in Madrid in particular, and many of them only discover that they're black when they come to Spain, and they call them black.
And they're like, whoa,
so,
yeah,
and in fact that last summer I took my son to the barber. They are Dominicans, and they were speaking, to each other, and they were saying like, listen, I don't mind if they call me black. No, I don't mind. Yeah, they call me black. Yeah, that's fine. Is it like, well, better than they call me white?
Well,
so it's funny, but the interesting thing about it is that I also thought about the lack of that kind of racial consciousness connect to that kind of difficult past that the whole Caribbean, but not just the Caribbean, the whole America share in common.
Yeah.
Issues of slavery, the of course the issues of the death and denigration of indigenous cultures, all of those. That's a lack of awareness. I mean, it's not forefront in their discourse. It's not that they're totally aware. They are aware of that legacy. There's the museum, and they take us to the museum where they discuss the part of the slavery. But funny enough, it's more space dedicated to Taino culture. It's interesting. I've never seen such a large collection of Taino culture.
Yeah, you should really check out if you have the chance. Bahamas also.
Yeah, so they dedicate more space to that than the discussion of slavery. So I think it's almost like yes, but this is what I found it a little bit interesting. The fact that there is not so much focus on that. I also noticed something interesting. There was this kind of like race is not so central to their society.
Right.
I'm saying this because race was invented and created for the domination of Europeans over other groups, right? Indigenous peoples of the Americas, Africans, and later on other groups in the world, right? And at the same time, what has happened is that to combat racial domination, other groups like black people and so on, develop a racial consciousness and racial identities and so on. But that also has created this kind of like always kind of climate of confrontation, right? And you don't see that much. And actually, what you see, it's a way more mixed society. Not saying mixed in terms of racial mixture and stuff like that, but also in the ways that they interact. I had that impression that there is less sort of like, I had the impression of there's less tension in a way, in the ways that and also in the ways that you see that how in Jamaica, for example, you associate certain groups with certain jobs, right? That is not so clear cut in the Dominican Republic. Right. You can see people doing very humble jobs who look very different from each other.
Yeah.
Right? Which is not the case of Jamaica, if you know what I mean. So I understand that, but at the same time, if we put this at the forefront, wouldn't we'd also kind of create new sorts of tensions that also can create other problems. So it's something for me is food for thought, something to think about.
Right.
And what are the implications of this?
Right. And before I go to the next place, Nawalo had this question about black students being allowed to attend university in the Dom Rep. Especially as you say that it was one of the first, or the tour guide says that it was the first university in the region. You didn't spend a lot of time there.
No, not enough to know.
Right.
I mean, what I can tell you is that I saw more, because normally when you're in Spain, you don't see so many black Dominicans. You see them more mixed. Yeah. I saw, of course, more black people in the Dominican Republic. I mean, than you tend to think of, and you see them in different sectors of society and interacting with different people. So I don't think that's an issue. Of course, I don't think there is any problem for black students to attend universities. You see them interacting in different people, looking differently, and so on, in all kinds of different spheres. So I don't think that should be an issue. I don't know. Obviously, in the past, I'm pretty sure that would have been a very different situation.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah. And still, you see, it's interesting because you have the electoral campaign is happening now. I think they have elections at the end of the month or in May.
Right.
And most of the candidates, they look of a particular complexion. Mostly of them, they look Spanish, right? Spanish from Spain, right? Mm-hmm. So you will still see that who dominates the upper parts of society. It's still the descendants of the Creoles or the Spanish Criollos and stuff like that. So. Mm-hmm.
But you didn't just go to the Dom Rep. You went to Panama, and I think that in Jamaica we have a much a closer, I suppose, relationship with Panama.
There were so many Jamaicans.
Right.
When we went to the mall.
Yeah. I mean, my cousins were there. My great grandfather was there for a little bit, so I know that, like, you were having, especially in like a few generations back, you had a lot of Panamanians and coming to Jamaica for education.
Yeah.
So what was that like? Did you fly over the canal?
Did I fly over the canal? No, I visited the canal.
Oh, okay.
If I flew over the canal, I wasn't aware of it. Normally I choose aisle seats. So
are you afraid of heights?
No, it's just I can stretch my knees are getting old.
Oh.
So sometimes I need to stretch my legs. It's a little bit easier if you're on an aisle seat. I visited the canal, which is obviously quite amazing. And so like they have these basically there are two in Panama City. I think there are two locks, two main locks where they have exhibitions and stuff like that. And one of the and they have like a IMAX cinema where they show this documentary of how it was built, how it works, and stuff like that. And of course, for me as a historian, how it was built. I mean, it was amazing. It's amazing because as they say, when we think of the Suez Canal in Egypt, it's a little bit more straightforward. But this is rainforest terrain, mountainous terrain, and very tropical with plenty of rainfall, with mosquito-borne diseases and stuff like that. The conditions, if you can think of, I mean, after slavery, there was that.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I think the big question is like, what was pushing people from all over the world, China, the Caribbean, you name it, to go and work there, because the working conditions were dreadful.
Miserable,
Yeah. So
I again on my list to go, and South America is really, especially as we're looking at these.
Technically speaking, this is Central America.
Sorry.
Right? It's the Isthmus joining.
It's right on that little strip.
Yeah.
But I just think I don't know. We spoke about Panama late last year, especially as they were having issues around their relations with Canada.
Yeah, the mining company.
Right.
That's an interesting thing. Yeah.
And so I just think about this. We spoke about Dom Reps, like very quick kind of increase in like developmental and financial and all of these things. Panama is I hear it all the time. It's like the best place to go for like all of your shops and everything, because it's like so American. Like there's like so much.
I mean, if you like, the thing is, if you like shopping and if you like the kind of goods that actually it's more than American, because of the Spanish influence, you also have a lot of European shops. So many of those European shops that it might be a little bit harder to find in American malls. You find them there.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because
and you don't need a visa to travel to Panama.
Right, and of course because of the canal, you're having this drop off of things, and it's when we think about like a developed nation. what are we thinking about? And like Panama was forced because it's like this connection point.
I mean, it is this week I discussed with my students how geographic location sometimes can be a factor. Not the main or not the only, but a factor. And I talked to them about Egypt, ancient Egypt and the Nile. I talk about Carthage being on the north of on the Mediterranean, or I talk about Aksum being on the Red Sea. That location gives you advantages. And of course, Panama, which was the backwater of the Spanish Empire, didn't matter at all,
of course.
right? Compared to all the territories of the Spanish Empire. That location in the late 19th century made them relevant, and the rest is history. But as I don't know if our listeners know, the canal was eventually built by the Americans, and it was controlled by the Americans until 1999. And as they were talking about it, I had memories of the 90s when the U.S. was trying to delay the handover of the canal to the Panamanians, thinking that they will not be able to pull it off, they will not be able to manage it properly. And of course, part of what they're doing is also like sort of showing off that not only we have managed it, but we have expanded it, because in recent years they have expanded the canal and so on. So they're taking a lot of pride on that. But I think my final point about Panama is there is development, but there is a lot of inequality too. Yeah,
because I know that we're trying to finish off this segment and we've had such a rich discussion, but we spoke a little bit about this kind of ethnic situation in Dam Rep, and I just wonder, when we look at the situation in Panama, obviously there's a lot of positive, but like what did you see?
I mean, in terms of ethnicity, for example, of course, Panama has a much larger, rich indigenous culture.
Of course.
So everywhere you go, you're going to see people who are indigenous peoples and stuff like that. Most of them basically either they're remaining there in their communities, or some of them they come to the city to sell a handcraft for tourists and stuff like that. Right. So there is that sort of representation and now respect for the lands, which should not be touched for capitalist development projects and stuff like that. But what I saw is a little bit of like, you see these high rises, and at the same time that you have the high rises, when you look down on the ground, you see that proper sewage is not built, garbage collection, it's not properly done. So there are the kinds of basic things that affect the people who especially the people who don't have a vehicle and they're walking on the streets and stuff like that show you that. And of course there are those communities like El Chorrillo. For those of you who may know boxing, Roberto Duran Mano de Piedra, stone hand, right? He comes from that neighborhood. And so does the Panamanian musician Ruben Blades or Ruben Blades. And they come from those communities, so that is still there. That is sort of inequality still there. And I wasn't able to go to the rural areas, which again it's
a whole other thing.
Yeah. So that is there. I don't know. I would like to hope. There is this is my final point. I promise.
Okay.
You see how I told you about the non-gentrification of the colonial area?
Yes.
You see that in the colonial area of Panama City.
Yeah.
And of course, how you see it is because you see all these banners complaining about the gentrification that is taking place. So there's a movement against it, but I don't think they are going to prevail. To be honest.
Boy. Wow. I mean, this has been great. I think I'm booking my next trip.
Yeah,
I'm gonna.
And since I still have a lot to say, we can go together.
Yeah. Maybe outside broadcast.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna take a quick break and be back with In the Classroom.
Come to Frame Art Jamaica Limited for your one-stop framing, graphic design, and printing needs. We frame photos, certificates, paintings, t-shirts, and so much more. We print banners and print on canvas. You can also get high-quality prints and framing done in a quick turnaround time to fit your budget. Visit Frame Arts Jamaica at 22C Old Hope Road, Kingston 5, Monday through Saturday, 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Call us at 876-929-3058 or visit us at info@frameartjamaica.com. Serving you for more than 30 years.
The Olympic Games 2024 live from Paris in France, exclusively on Nationwide 90 FM.
The Jamaican star shines bright once again. Live here halfway through an Olympic final.
This summer, Nationwide 90 FM is coming in hot.
Jamaica to the blacks!
Nationwide 90 FM will be blazing as we bring you the games of the 33rd Olympiad live from the French capital, Paris. 16 fantastic days of competition in 41 sports.
Nobly Williams-Mills coming, the glory flapping, her arms are waving, and Nobly Williams-Mills coming through for Jamaica's goal.
The station will bring you analysis and live coverage from the opening day of competition, Friday, July 26th to the very last day of action on Sunday, August 11th.
And to Parchment, let's go! Oh, what a run!
Everything and anything Paris Olympic Games 2024 can be heard right here on Nationwide 90 FM.
It is a glittering goal for Sharika Jackson, and how they will celebrate that back in Jamaica.
We'll capture the spirit of athleticism. We'll narrate the Olympic fever, define thrilling moments, and report on the blood, sweat, and tears of the world's greatest athletes. Nationwide 90 FM is going to the Paris Olympic Games, and we're taking you with us. Tune into Nationwide 90.3, 90.5, 90.7, and 90.9 for live updates and commentary. We'll be giving the listeners a front row seat to witness excitement, triumph, and memories.
And I think it was a clean sweep for the Jamaicans.
Stay tuned to Nationwide 90 FM 24/7. Experience the Paris Olympic Games 2024 right here on the Revolution in Media Nationwide 90 FM, your Olympic Center. Exclusively on Nationwide 90 FM.
Good, we're back with History for Tomorrow on Nationwide 90 FM, and it's now time for In the Classroom. This week, we are speaking to two students from Calabar High School, Omar Gordon and Jabari Johnson. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
All right.
I'm doing fine. How are you?
We're good. Thank you.
Yeah, we're good. Thank you for asking. You know, most people don't ask us.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So, we would just love to hear about why you chose to study history.
Well, first of all, let's just say, you. I assume that you are now on Easter holiday break still.
Oh,
right?
that's true. That's true. Are you still on?
You're still on.
Oh yes, I am.
Yeah. Okay. You weren't sure if you're on a break, right? You know, because we are going to ask you all this. Okay. And we assume that although you are on a break right now, you are doing some school work, aren't you, or not?
Of course.
That's
why I wasn't really sure how to answer, because I'm still studying and doing work and stuff like that.
Okay.
That's an excellent answer, because that students.
If his teacher is listening.
And also just to know, the students don't really have a proper break until they have a proper break.
Oh,
which is
I see.
Yeah.
And when is that? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We've segued, but we just wanted to hear a little bit about your history. You're doing history at CSEC right now.
Yes.
Why did you choose that?
Well, I always had an interest in history since grade 7.
Okay.
I think I wouldn't have the interest if it wasn't for my teachers, because there's some really good teachers at Calabar. Yeah, so I decided to do it at grade 10. It's been very hard, but there's nothing I can't manage.
Oh, okay. Well, I love to hear that.
Yes.
And forgive me, I'm looking at you now on my screen, but I can't pick up is it you are Omar or you are Jabari?
I'm Omar.
Oh, okay.
Omar. And Jabari, how about you? Why did you choose to do history at CSEC level?
Sir, at first in grade 10, it wasn't really a choice, but like something I had to do
Okay.
because of the choices we were given.
Okay.
And over a great period, I was contemplating with myself if I wanted to switch or not. But like within myself, I wanted to stay consistent and go on. And who knows, I would have gotten the one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I passed on into 11th grade, and now I really love history.
Okay.
All right. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Why do you love history? Why have you come to love history? Right?
Yeah.
Well, sir, I will give it to my teachers, which is Miss Clark and Miss Shirley, because those two were the ones who were persisting me. Miss Shirley in 11th grade and Miss Clark in 10th grade.
Mm-hmm. All right. So basically, a good teacher
teachers.
can make a difference.
Right.
All right. Great.
Okay. So, would you mind just telling us about what your SBA's
A student-based
is assessment were about?
Mine personally, my own was about the West Africans and how the transatlantic slave trade affect them economically, politically, and socially.
Okay.
That's a very challenging.
Yeah, that's a tough topic.
Yeah.
And you, Omar?
Yes, so my topic was the Haitian Revolution. I was supposed to compare and contrast why Haitian Revolution was the only successful revolution back then in the 1800s, 1791 to 1800.
Yeah. And you said you were supposed to. Did you move away from that, or that's what you did?
Oh, that's what I did.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So the SBAs are completed basically.
Yes.
Yes.
they are.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Good. And so those are your topics, and maybe we can continue with you, Mark. How do you come to choose your topic? Do you choose the topic yourself, or is the history teacher who assigned it to you? How did that happen?
Well, initially I chose a topic for myself, but then my teacher wanted me to do something more challenging. Miss Clark, yes, she wanted me to do something more challenging, and the question that she gave me that I did, I was okay with it, so I decided to do it to give myself a challenge as well.
All right. Can I ask you then something? Since you've completed your SBA, can you now give us the actual answer? Why this was the only one who that succeeded?
Only revolution.
The only revolution.
Well, there's a lot of reasons. There was the terrain. A lot of the Haitian rebels who were doing the revolution, who were in the revolution, they had guerrilla tactics, and the soldiers who were fighting against them, they weren't used to it. And you also have to account for the fact that it was the swampy season at that time, and disease was running quickly. Like anytime like soldiers come to Haiti to fight, yellow fever was very rampant. And they weren't used to the climate, and they weren't immune to the disease. So that could also account for why it was so successful.
All right.
So, yeah.
So Jabari, how about you? What is how do you choose your topic in your case?
Sir, in our class, our teacher, which was Miss Clark at the time, she basically aligned the class in a way that she would choose a topic for us. So like the things that we could manage, that she thought we could manage.
Okay. All right. So she gave you a challenging topic, so which means that she had high expectations for you. All right. And in on that note, the impact. Can you just like give us maybe kind of couple of lines as to what you think was the main impact on the West African societies?
Well, sir, the way how like back then in the transatlantic slave trade worked is that some of the impact was like mainly caused by the Europeans at the time, because Europeans wanted slaves for their own benefit, and so it allowed the society of West Africa to become very, what would I say, dilapidated at the time. When it happened. And this caused a lot of things to happen, like some of the rulers in the West African society started to turn against their own people and such and such. But it caused the West African society in general just to become destroyed and more or less crippled because of what the Europeans wanted and the continuous demands for West African slaves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was just gonna tell you that I really feel that we are in the classroom since
Yes.
I've been called sir.
Yes.
I really feel like we're in the.
you know, I mean, I just wonder.
Mm-hmm.
It feels that way too. I yeah. But on that note about what you're seeing as the result in West Africa, was there anything that was particularly interesting to you about the topic? Like, did something really stand out to you? What did you learn?
Miss, well, the things that are interesting, well, for me personally, I kind of forgot some of the forget some of the things that happened during that time, but I remember there being some interesting things in some of the things that they traded for the West Africans.
Okay.
And and there was something that outstanding as well, but at the time, no, I can't really try to pinpoint it.
I mean,
We'll have to read his
yes, we'll have to. You'll have to send it to us, and we'll learn something
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, but yeah, the trade and the things that some of these leaders would have taken in exchange is a really interesting topic, and maybe something that we can expand on. We talked about it a little bit
Yeah.
in February. What about you, Omar? What was the most interesting thing about your topic about the Haitian Revolution? You talked a little bit about the weather conditions and health,
Yeah.
but what else? What was exciting for you?
Well, the most exciting for me was the leadership by Toussaint Louverture. He was a Haitian leader.
Yeah.
I think it was very commendable of him to take up the fight and really fought for the slaves' freedom, because at that time he was switching sides a lot, because he sided with the Spanish forces, and then he came onto the French forces when they declared emancipation for the slaves. So it was like he was looking for the interests of the slaves the most, and there were also, and when he was taken to France and in prison, other leaders came up, Dessalines and Henry Christophe. They took up the fight for freedom and were able to help the slaves in achieving that. Yes.
All right, that's awesome. I was just thinking that that in a way you could merge, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about this topic, but bringing together your two kind of SBAs, like one looking at Africa, one looking at revolts, in this case in Haiti, but also Jamaican history. I can recommend you a book that you might find it interesting. Is written by Vincent Brown, and the name of the book is Takis Revolt, the story of an Atlantic slave war. And you might find it interesting because it sort of merges developments in West Africa to the revolts here in the Caribbean and so on. And I recommend you this book maybe for your summer break, when you will have a proper break to read this book. All right, guys?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much for joining us this morning. All the best for the remaining of the academic year, right?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, have a great Saturday and enjoy the rest of your quote-unquote Easter break. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right, we're going to take a quick break now. We'll be back shortly with This Week in History.
Need to make a change to your title or need a title? Geoland Title Limited. They do lost title application, add and remove names from titles, wills, estates. First-time registration land surveys also included. Affordable rates and flexible payment options. NLA adjudication and land titling waivers also available. They have 8 locations island-wide. Call 754-6436 or visit their website at geolandonline.com. Geoland Title Limited. Secure your land, secure your title.
Hi there. Here's some good news for these trying times. Quote, "By God's word, I can see where I'm going. They throw a beam of light on my dark path." Unquote. Psalm 119, verse 105. Listen for God's word weekdays at 5:45 a.m. and 12:55 p.m. through
Oasis. Stop by for a refreshing drink and share a God perspective for the day.
Oasis. Weekdays 5:45 a.m. and 12:55 p.m. right here on Nationwide, a revolution in media.
The rebroadcast of the Oasis can be heard weekdays at 5:45 a.m.
The Oasis is brought to you by Solar Tech Jamaica. We use the gift of the sun to power our world.
I am so sick and tired of this world. All these women with their dreams shattered. From some man's sweaty, desperate touch.
Welcome back. You're listening to History for Tomorrow on Nationwide 90 FM, and it's now time for This Week in History. Are we going very far back, Enrique?
No, just we are going as far, just a little bit around the corner.
Oh, okay.
I'm taking you to the beginning of time.
Oh,
yeah, the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, the moment when it all
That
started.
really is.
Yeah,
that was a very Jamaican approach around the corner.
Yeah, just around the corner. Yeah, well, almost.
Okay.
In fact, I'm taking you to April 1st, 1948. When a groundbreaking paper was published outlining a theory that explained the origin of the universe. Yes, the origin of the universe. The paper in question was titled On Origin and Relative Abundance of the Chemical Elements. But the theory that he proposed became commonly known as the Big Bang Theory.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that happened a little bit later. In a sense, the theory proposed that there was a moment before time started, that is, a moment before the beginning of time began.
Gotcha.
And then the universe, as we know, was created or began to be created. At that particular moment, right before the universe began to be formed, the universe was highly compressed, the size of a baseball or a golf ball, or perhaps much smaller than that. Then the greatest thermonuclear explosion of all time took place. The explosion created space and time as we know it, releasing at the same time subatomic particles, neutrons, protons, and electrons. As the universe cooled after the explosion, these particles combined to form the chemical elements that make up the universe. From that moment on, according to the theory, the universe has been expanding and continues to expand. This went against the prevailing view of physicists at the time. The way that physicists saw it then, the universe was timeless. That is, it has existed forever, and it was infinite. There were no limits to the space, right, to the universe. The Big Bang Theory, however, proposed the universe came into being at a finite point in a very distant past. So there was a moment of creation. And also its size was not infinite because it's expanding, right? So the groundbreaking paper was published in the Physical Review, and as I said, April 1st, 1948, and was written by George Gamow and Ralph Alpher, but a third name was added to the author list. That was Hans Bethius. If you're asking yourself why they added this third name, it was actually a bit of a joke. The main author wanted to create a play on words with the last names of the authors to reflect the three earliest types of radiation discovered: alpha, beta, and gamma.
Okay.
right? Letters of the
Yeah,
Greek alphabet. The article became commonly known as the Alpha Beth Gamma paper, the last names of
Yes.
the authors, or simply as the Alpha Beta Gamma paper. Right, so that's why the second
They added this third person,
the
yes.
third person, yeah. But the third person, by the way, was a physicist.
Yes,
It wasn't
yeah.
just a random,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
It was an actual person. Got you.
An important and as important as this paper came to be, this was not the only whimsical aspect of this paper. You would have noticed that I referred to the theory proposed by the authors as the Big Bang theory, but the authors themselves never used this term. In fact, it was Fred Hoyle, a British astronomer, critical of the paper, that in 1949 referred to it with the moniker Big Bang Theory during an interview. So he was just trying to criticize the theory, like almost like it's not worthy of respect. This is just a Big Bang theory, right? Big Bang for the explosion that
Right.
the paper claimed that was the beginning of the universe. And the immediate impact of the theory proposed in 1948 was actually limited. Most physicists at the time believed the universe had no beginning and no end, both in terms of time and space. As I said, it was infinite. Right? The paper itself was presented as a theoretical model, but with no empirical or observable evidence to support the thesis. The paper, however, was not chastised as heretical or anything of this sort, meaning long gone were the days when scientists had to be afraid for their lives for simply proposing a theory that went against the commonly accepted view about the universe and nature, which were often held on the basis of religious interpretations. In fact, when the paper was published in 1948, the world had entered a new era, the era of science, we might call it, because for decades scientists had made amazing discoveries that provided real understanding about nature and the universe, and to some extent gave us some sort of control over it. For example, the recent use by the Americans of the 2 nuclear bombs against Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, in 1945, which were immediately credited for ending the war and saving the lives of thousands of US soldiers, and obviously that is subject to discussion.
Yes.
It was an example of the power of science, nuclear energy, right?
Right.
And especially modern states believe in an investment in science for their country's development and hegemony. This is the moment that we are seeing now. Countries are investing increasingly more and more and putting all more greater effort in the development of science, as they realize it's important for the development of their countries. The publication in 1948 of the paper that will help popularize the Big Bang theory was not all that novel. And it's widely accepted that this paper and these authors were not the first authors to propose the theory of the big explosion or Big Bang. The theory they presented relied on important discoveries made in the previous decades by theoretical physicists, astronomers, mathematicians. The most notable contributions to this paper were, of course, Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, but also Edwin Hubble's discovery. Edwin Hubble was a physicist and astronomer, and he was the first one who was realized that the universe was in fact expanding by observing that galaxies were moving away from us. And especially the author that has to be credited for the Big Bang theory is Georges Lemaitre, a mathematical whose mathematical demonstration that the universe was getting bigger and at some point it had been much smaller was fundamental. Lemaitre was Belgian, and he proposed that at some point in the very distant past, the universe was a very small dense mass, a primeval atom, he called it, from which the whole universe expanded. Time and space did not exist. Because of this, many credit Lemaitre as the creator of the Big Bang theory, though he did not talk about an explosion at the time. Right? So that is relevant because he did that in the late 1920s. So this is 20 or so years before the paper that was published by the Alpha, Beta, and Gamma authors.
Right.
The interesting thing about the work of Lemaitre and many other physicists at the time is that they sought to provide a scientific explanation to the beginning of the universe, something that until then had only been done within the fields of religion and of course metaphysics, which is a branch of philosophy. Even more interesting perhaps is that Lemaitre was a Roman Catholic priest, as well as a
Really?
mathematician, theoretical physicist, astronomer, and also an engineer. He didn't see any contradiction, by the way, between science and religion, and referring to possible contradictions about the two, he said, and I quote, "Once you realize that the Bible does not purport to be a textbook of science, the whole controversy between religion and science vanishes." He says religion is about salvation, science is about explaining the physical or natural world, right? But even if science and religion in a way try to explain the same thing, because this is the thing, this is the part of physics that get it closer to kind of like religion and metaphysics, right?
Yes.
They try to explain the origin of everything. They do so in fundamentally different ways. Science, in the end, needs evidence to demonstrate the validity of a theory. And the Big Bang theory, for a while, did not have any observable evidence. Did not have provided any observable evidence. Things will change rapidly, however, in 1965, when two young astronomers, Amos Penzias and Robert Wilson, working on projects in radio astronomy, they tried to eliminate all sorts of static from their instruments so they could obtain the purest possible signals from the outer space. Yet they found that some noises, some of that static, could not be eliminated. So shortly after, it was realized that what they had observed, right, they found that they were looking for, it was the cosmic radio, basically it was the remnant of that big explosion. So that kind of hiss that they noticed in their equipment is actually kind of the remnants of the Big Bang explosion. And for this, in 1978, these two young astronomers received the Nobel Prize for their discovery. To this day, the Big Bang theory remains the most convincing explanation about the origin of the universe. And yes, it began in 1948, but as we realize, it also began early on with the discoveries of other physicists and the amazing discoveries that were making from the early 20th century. That's this week in history.
Boy, I mean, I'm no science brain or anything like that, but it's always interesting to see how the history in different fields develop. History of science here? History of science. I mean, the Big Bang Theory, I think, is fairly popular for most people because it's kind of this challenging narrative to religion, as
Lemaitre.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's challenging. It's challenging from the perspective of maybe more the monotheistic religions. In fact, there is something about Fang worldview that in a way resembles that, because in Fang cosmology or cosmogony, we don't talk about creation, we talk about arrangement. So in the beginning there was chaos, and there was this chaotic matter, and this matter was sort of arranged in the kind of celestial order that we have now. So I think it's challenging, but this Lemaitre is a clear example of that. The two things are separate, right? What you get from religion versus what you get from science, right?
Yeah.
So if you're seeking the same thing from the two, that is when the controversy appears. But if you seek different things, then is different. And I have to tell you this, because this is what I chose this topic. You know, actually, what I always wanted to be as a young kid, I wanted to be an astronomer. Right?
Really?
Yeah. Like astronomer, physicist, you know what? Because to me it was clear that is like to understand how all this came to be.
Yeah.
Right? You have to go into physics and the analysis of all this, nature and universe and stuff like that. At some point, I realized that I will not be able to do it, right? For obvious reasons, mathematics got in the way, right? And a bad mathematics teacher, just like amazing teachers can do miracles, like bad teachers can also do like a lot of damage.
Yes.
Yeah, but I guess the next thing I found is like, okay, history is another way of understanding how we came to be, at least from the moment that humans have been around. So, but to me, the fundamental question was the same thing: understanding the world in which we live and stuff like that. And of course, physics is one of the ways of understanding from obviously a very different perspective. But at the same time, is what I always found that thing interesting. Some of the questions that sciences, in particular physics, ask are questions that we've been asking ourselves since the beginning of times, whether it is through religion, philosophy, and stuff like that. Right, so that is to me a very interesting thing. And putting this on paper and providing a comprehensive explanation, and then finding some evidence to support it, I think that is also awesome. All right.
Yeah. Well,
So
that was
that's
awesome.
Yeah, that's this week in history. We're gonna take a quick break now, and we'll be back shortly with what is it?
What's popping?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Hi there. Here's some good news for these trying times. Quote, "By God's word, I can see where I'm going. They throw a beam of light on my dark path." Unquote. Psalm 119, verse 105. Listen for God's word weekdays at 5:45 a.m. and 12:55 p.m. through
Oasis. Stop by for a refreshing drink and share a God perspective for the day.
Oasis. Weekdays 5:45 a.m. and 12:55 p.m. right here on Nationwide, a revolution in media.
The rebroadcast of The Oasis can be heard weekdays at 5:45 a.m.
The Oasis is brought to you by Solar Tech Jamaica. We use the gift of the sun to power our world.
The Olympic Games 2024 live from Paris in France, exclusively on Nationwide 90 FM.
The Jamaican star shines bright once again. Live here halfway through an Olympic finals.
This summer, Nationwide 90 FM is coming in hot.
Jamaica to the blacks!
Nationwide 90 FM will be blazing as we bring you the games of the 33rd Olympiad live from the French capital, Paris. 16 fantastic days of competition in 41 sports.
Nobly Williams Mills coming, the glory flapping, her arms are waving, and Nobly Williams Mills coming through for Jamaica's goal.
The station will bring you analysis and live coverage from the opening day of competition, Friday, July 26th to the very last day of action on Sunday, August 11th.
And to Parchment, let's go! Oh, what a run!
Everything and anything Paris Olympic Games 2024 can be heard right here on Nationwide 90 FM.
It is a glittering goal for Sharika Jackson, and how they will celebrate that back in Jamaica.
We'll capture the spirit of athleticism. We'll narrate the Olympic fever, define thrilling moments, and report on the blood, sweat, and tears of the world's greatest athletes. Nationwide 90 FM is going to the Paris Olympic Games, and we're taking you with us. Tune into Nationwide 90.3, 90.5, 90.7, and 90.9 for live updates and commentary. We'll be giving the listeners a front row seat to witness excitement, triumph, and memories.
And I think it was a clean sweep for the Jamaicans.
Stay tuned to Nationwide 90 FM 24/7. Experience the Paris Olympic Games 2024 right here on the Revolution in Media Nationwide 90 FM, your Olympic Center. Exclusively on Nationwide 90 FM.
Welcome back. This is History for Tomorrow on Nationwide 90 FM, and we are now in the segment What's Poppin' with Celine.
All right. Hi, Mia. Hi, Enrique.
Hi.
And hello to our listeners. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
So this week, we're going to be talking about School Challenge Quiz. And I know if you're Jamaican, you must know about School Challenge Quiz. And St. Diego High School has once again proven its dominance as the all-island champion in TVJ's very prestigious, I would say, 2024 Schools Challenge Quiz competition. And they secured their victory for the third consecutive year against Calabar, who has been doing very well in School Challenge Quiz and also proved to be a very formidable opponent for San Diego. In the thrilling sudden death round, St. Diego emerged triumphant with the final score of 37-33, cementing their status as reigning champions of School Challenge Quiz. And the triumph, I would say, marks the 8th victory for the institution in the history of the competition. And I think it's a remarkable achievement and really shows St. Diego's dedication to that academic excellence. I know that the competition has a lot of prestige and the competitive spirit definitely gets all Jamaicans going. And remarkably, this is also the 13th final match appearance for St. Diego. And that again solidifies their reputation as one of the powerhouses in the competition's history.
I shouldn't ask any questions that aren't water to the wine.
No, what's the question?
I mean, you said, that underscores their dedication to academic excellence. So, to you, the quiz competition is a sign of academic excellence.
Well, I think because just personally, as somebody who
it's a big achievement.
It is a big achievement, and as somebody who I wasn't on my school's quiz team.
Oh, you didn't get through?
No, it's not that I decided that I didn't want to try it for the quiz team because I wanted to focus on school, but I would still stay back late in the evenings while they were training, and I think it takes a lot of dedication.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Oh, they're so knowledgeable.
So hard to do. So I think that whenever I see these group of students really dedicate themselves to it and they win, or even if they don't win or lose, just deciding to be a part of the competition, I think shows some sort of commitment to achieving academically. Yes. So to get into the history element of it, for people who don't know, School Challenge Quiz was launched 55 years ago in 1969, and it stands as a testament to the enduring legacy of academic excellence and intellectual prowess in Jamaica. That's what I think.
All right.
I have to agree.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I will not say anything yet. And maybe not anything this week, but next week I'm telling you something about it.
So the competition was established against the backdrop of significant developments in Jamaica's educational landscape. Following our independence from British colonial rule in 1962, there was a renewed focus on education as a means of nation building and social advancement. In this context, initiatives like School Challenge Quiz were instrumental, I think, in promoting that culture of intellectual engagement among Jamaican youth. I know if you're a child watching School Challenge Quiz, even if you know nothing about it, you try to answer the questions, you get very involved. And I also think just as a family, it provides an opportunity for families to really just play and have fun. The inception of School Challenge Quiz in 1969 was inspired by the English-based University College, setting the stage for the decades-long tradition of academic competition and intellectual engagement. And now the quiz is a beloved institution in Jamaica, and it really captivates us with the thrilling displays of knowledge and quick thinking, and especially with the artists versus influencers edition. I think people were really, really excited to see more than just students, but just regular people who do what we do at home all the time, which is try to answer the questions even though we don't know anything. And it was just
I suspect the questions that the influencers and the artists got were less challenging than the ones the students get. I don't believe they will prepare for as long and as much as the students.
I don't think so. Despite its humble beginnings on the now defunct Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation, JBC, the quiz has grown to become a cornerstone of Jamaican television. The excitement around School Challenge Quiz extends beyond the competition itself. As I've been talking about, viewers from across the island really tune in to support their alma maters and cheer on their favorite teams. And for many alumni, the competition serves as a nostalgic reminder of their school days. I definitely felt some nostalgia as I was just reading on the process of School Challenge Quiz, the different winners over the years. And I know for especially depending on the high school that you go to, there's a big quiz culture. Go ahead, Enrique.
No, I think there's a hope for you. I mean, maybe you can qualify it as an influencer.
Influencer.
Right? And then during one of these...
I would love to go on school.
I know.
challenge
I mean,
quiz.
if that much is obvious.
I'm hearing this.
I mean, I think it's so fun.
Mhm.
So, as I was looking at this as well, I wanted to give some context to the development of the Jamaican education system, especially because of the number of traditional high schools that participate in this competition and their establishment from decades before the quiz even began. So the development of our school system can be traced back to the 19th century when efforts were made to formalize educational institutions across the island. And one significant milestone was the establishment of the Jamaican Education Act in 1835, and it laid the foundation for our modern education system. And throughout the 20th century, there was a lot of effort to expand access to education, resulting in the establishment of lots of primary and secondary schools, including the institutions who've played the final match, St. Jago High and Calabar. And like I said, this was born out of JBC, no, the JBC by the RGR Communications Group in 1997. That's when TVJ was born,
Okay.
and they are the producers of School Challenge Quiz. So yeah, that's just my little 2 cents on the history of the competition and the place that I think it has in Jamaican culture. And
But what, in addition to the prestige, the students of the school, what do they win? Anything?
Yeah, they definitely win prizes. I'm not aware of what the prizes are right now, but I know for sure that.
And you still want to compete even though you don't know about prices.
But you know what? And that's the thing for me. I think I'm definitely thinking about it from when I was in high school. I wasn't thinking about the prizes. I was just in awe of how quick and bright the students were who did quiz. Mind you, it take a lot of time. You tend to work more on quiz than you do on your studies. That's what happens a lot of the times, and that's why I didn't push to participate in quiz. But it was really nice to see the fervor that they put into it.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that being in high school.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to it. I was also not a part of the school challenge quiz team, but you.
So, because you chose not to, or just?
Oh no, I was definitely not qualified. But it was. I think it's as you say, it's a balance.
Yeah.
It's a sense of balance, and when you look at just the wealth, like the wide berth of knowledge that these students are accumulating, because it's not just like, of course, academic knowledge, it's kind of like societal knowledge, like knowing what's happening in your community, what's happening in the world. And that is just so often we hear that students have a one-track understanding of what's happening, and so to see these students who know not only what they're reading in their books, what's happening around them, it's wonderful. And I think that if we expanded that kind of knowledge base, like that kind of understanding, it would really benefit students.
Like
but
in schools
just in general, book learning is important, but like when you look at how well adjusted these students then have to be, because they have to know more than just what they're seeing in front of them, it's inspiring. And congratulations to the teachers and the coaches that led St. Jago to this win.
Yeah, and all the other schools, like win or lose, it's
Yes.
still a big thing to dedicate yourself to preparing for the competition.
Of course.
And whatever the results are, you guys are all stars.
Yeah.
So that was What's Popping. Stay tuned. We'll be back with historical birthdays.
Who shops at Creative Building Finishes? You, the homeowner who creates luxurious spaces with our floor and wall tiles. The contractor and builder who are convinced that our ceramic tiles are right for the job. The architect and designer who make dreams come true with our wood look and porcelain tiles. Superior customer service, knowledgeable staff, inviting showroom, and you get where this is going, right? Shop 5 Red Hills Road or call 876-929-5553. Get tiles, get creative building finishes.
The Olympic Games 2024 live from Paris in France, exclusively on Nationwide 90 FM.
The Jamaican star shines bright once again. Live here halfway through an Olympic final.
This summer, Nationwide 90 FM is coming in hot. Nationwide 90 FM will be blazing as we bring you the games of the 33rd Olympiad live from the French capital, Paris. 16 fantastic days of competition in 41 sports.
Nobly Williams Mills coming, the glory flapping, her arms are waving, and Nobly Williams Mills coming through for Jamaica's goal.
The station will bring you analysis and live coverage from the opening day of competition, Friday, July 26th to the very last day of action on Sunday, August 11th.
And to Parchment, let's go! Oh, what a run!
Everything and anything Paris Olympic Games 2024 can be heard right here on Nationwide 90 FM.
It is a glittering goal for Sharika Jackson, and how they will celebrate that back in Jamaica.
We'll capture the spirit of athleticism. We'll narrate the Olympic fever, define thrilling moments, and report on the blood, sweat, and tears of the world's greatest athletes. Nationwide 90 FM is going to the Paris Olympic Games, and we're taking you with us. Tune into Nationwide 90.3, 90.5, 90.7, and 90.9 for live updates and commentary. We'll be giving the listeners a front row seat to witness excitement, triumph, and memories.
And I think it was a clean sweep for the Jamaicans.
Stay tuned to Nationwide 90 FM 24/7. Experience the Paris Olympic Games 2024 right here on the Revolution in Media Nationwide 90 FM, your Olympic Center. Exclusively on Nationwide 90 FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to History for Tomorrow on Nationwide 90 FM, and it's now time for our final segment of the show. Here we celebrate the birthday of a historical figure. So, Mia, whose birthday are we celebrating, commemorating this week?
Actually, I think a lot of our listeners might have some kind of idea about this person, but this week we are going to be celebrating the birthday of author Hans Christian Andersen.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. Oh yeah, we gonna keep on celebrating. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday.
So, Hans Christian Andersen was born in Odense, Denmark on April 2nd, 1805. His enchanting tales with their unforgettable characters and enduring morals have brought the joy to countless children for generations. But the life of the man behind these stories was far more complex than the fantastical worlds he created. Hans Christian Andersen faced a difficult childhood marked by poverty and the loss of his father at a very young age. Despite these challenges, his artistic spirit thrived. He dreamt of a life on the stage and ventured to Copenhagen as a teenager, determined to become an actor. While his initial theatrical aspirations weren't realized, his journey in Copenhagen proved pivotal. Here, he received crucial support from influential figures like Jonas Collin, a producer and theater aficionado, recognizing his literary talent. The 1820s saw his first publications of short stories, but by the 1830s, the world was introduced to his now iconic fairy tales, including The Princess and the Pea, Thumbelina, The Little Mermaid, and The Emperor's New Clothes, to name a few. And I mean, these have transitioned to films and all sorts of things, so very well known. But they weren't just whimsical stories for children. They tackle themes of social injustice, self-discovery, and the importance of inner beauty. Hans Christian Andersen's adult life was a whirlwind of travel and literary production. He journeyed extensively throughout Europe, the Middle East, and even Africa, experiences reflected in his travelogues. He never married, and his personal life remains kind of a subject of debate, with some scholars suggesting unrequited affections that may have influenced the emotional depth of his stories. Despite any personal struggles, his dedication to his craft and his keen observation of the human condition cemented his place as a literary giant. His legacy transcends age and language, and his stories have been translated into over 100 languages. And as I said, we see it on the screen. They resonate with
We
readers.
should still read the books.
Yes, we should. We should. His stories continue to resonate with readers young and old and remind us of the power of imagination and, this endurance of human spirit and what we can really find in books and the literary world. So happy birthday to Hans Christian Andersen.
Yes, happy birthday. I wonder why you chose to highlight the fact that he was never married. It's like it's like something like
for someone. But I just think about the fact that, and this is maybe a little old school, but like for somebody who has influenced children for so long, and like
no, I don't think you should go into the
don't do it.
No, I mean the thing is that the man never got married, so so what?
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Yeah, people can choose to get married or not, and why didn't he? Well.
Right.
It's too late to answer that question.
It is. It is. We can only hypothesize.
Yeah, I'm going to look. I was looking at YouTube and see some of the comments our listeners have been sharing from morning. And Nuala says, hi guys, Miss Enrique. Okay, hi Mia. And reminding you that it's Easton McMorris. I don't know if you know this person of the McMorris. It's his birthday this week. All right. Also. I'm not sure if I pronounce it properly. And Noel is also giving me news because I didn't know, sharing news with me. He's telling me that, Enrique, I heard that last week ExxonMobil is pulling out of Equatorial Guinea. I had no clue about it. I will follow it up, but I'm not surprised because oil production has been declining for the past 10 years or so. So I guess they don't have anything else to extract. So moving on for the big American oil corporation. In the meantime, of course, the dictatorship will continue in place. Don't worry about it. Ladista's asking me if I flew directly to Dom Rep. No, I didn't. I think there's an airline that flies directly to Dom Rep, but I mean, we flew with Copilot, so no, we just had to go to Panama, and then back to Panama, and we stay there in Panama, and then back here to Jamaica, where it's a direct flight. Noala asked me if I embarrassed my daughter. I tried my best, but apparently I didn't.
I mean, I think you were probably.
She was afraid. I tell you, before the trip, she was
did she
really.
give you a talking to?
No, but I mean, she kept hinting.
Please control yourself.
Yeah.
But
So
I think everyone was really appreciative of you because you were like translator extraordinaire, right?
Yeah. I think so. I think that helped. And so yeah, I try to help the best I could. I know was asking, and we don't have an answer for this. I don't have an answer, but I think we should look into it. Noala is asking, or was asking, if the first developed university, if of course Taino and black people were allowed to attend the university. I have absolutely no clue. This would have been a great question for me to ask the guide.
Yeah, while you were there, but you were just so.
I never thought of that question, but I'm going to do a little bit of research.
We're going to write it down.
Yeah, write it down, please, because I will forget about it, and then we'll try to answer that question. GH is telling us, good morning, everyone. I just dropped to say hello. He's apparently attending a funeral. What else? George Joseph is telling us, it's telling us that reggaeton started in Panama. It started with the Jamaican community in Panama. I had no clue about it. So thanks for sharing this piece of knowledge. And Noala is asking, do they listen to History for Tomorrow? I wonder if he's asking the Panamanians on the Dominican Republic. If they don't, they should.
I'm going to share it be like, you guys should listen. We talk about you
We
guys.
have a listener, Pastor Cyber, who is listening to us from Kenya. Hey, that talk about an international audience.
Yeah.
And Noala is recommending, and I think it's recommending for our students, a book on the Haitian Revolution, which is Black Spartacus, which is a good discussion, and I'm very sure that they will appreciate it. Ledista is also telling us, I guess, going back to the discussion on the Big Bang, a sense that time is infinite because it says 7 billion years. Okay, come on, that is
it seems unfathomable.
yeah, we can't even exactly. But it's between consensus. Yeah, it's something in between 18 or 7 between 7 and 20 billion years.
Right.
So many of them they say like strike something in the middle. So 15 billion year old. That's how old the universe is. But this is the important thing. If it's finite, it means it started at a point, it will end at
That is
another
true.
point. And there is no consensus as to when, depending on what, there are different theories as to when. But don't worry, none of us will be around to see the end of the universe.
That's a relief.
Yeah, yeah. And Ledista's asking, of course, the fundamental question. What does the universe expand into? According to my readings, it expands into nothing. Right? But of course, like, I don't think that is a very hard one to kind of swallow. Like,
Clearly, along with our show on the Domrek, but we need to get a physicist on to talk about the history of science.
Yeah, but a physicist that can level up with us.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah. Yeah.
I
can think of
in
some
just a
people.
sense, I keep facing the idea of universe inside systems of like Russian dolls, like Matryoshkas, right? That's an interesting theory. Noala says, I'm always struck by that the Pope Francis is a chemist. Okay, so
I actually looked this up, and he did go to a technical high school. He started a master's degree, but he eventually turned to the church, and I think that's a interesting.
Eventually turned to the church. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some in the Catholic faith are like he turned against us, but anyway,
No,
another discussion.
He found it.
Mhm.
So
yeah. What else? Finally, yes. Noala saying like there's no contradiction between science and religion. That is kind of more of he's a Yankee influence. So I don't think it's just American influence. I think like in the kind of like Judeo-Christian tradition, there's always that sort of Islamic tradition. There's always that conflict, right? But
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But all the same.
Yeah.
I want to thank you all for listening and for your conversation on the stream. We always love to see what you're thinking about, and it gives us ideas for our next shows. So thank you again. Thank you as well to our guests, to our students. It was great to hear from them, and I know our listeners enjoyed hearing from our young men. It's always great to see
Omar Gordon and Jabari Johnson.
Yes, exactly.
They were awesome. Thank you also to our producers, Sadine Peters. Please remember that you can listen to a repeat of the show at 9:30 p.m. on Monday in case you miss anything or something this week's show. And don't forget to tell people in your circle about History for Tomorrow so many more people can join us in these history conversations about history.
Absolutely. So join us next Saturday for another History for Tomorrow program right here on Nationwide 90 FM. Until next week, take care.
Have a great week.
You can have it all. Company events, birthday parties, or the wedding of your dreams. It's all possible at Grand Palladium Hotels and Resorts.